My name's David, and I've always loved the open road. There's something about the hum of tires on asphalt, the way the headlights cut through the night, that calms me down after a long day. I'm a mechanic, 28 years old, living in a small town called Millwood, about an hour's drive from the nearest city. Most nights, I'd rather take the back roads home than deal with traffic. Just me and my beat-up Ford pickup, the radio crackling through the static. But that night, October 23rd, under a sky so dark it swallowed the stars, everything changed. It was past midnight, and I was on Highway 17, a winding stretch of road that cuts through endless pine forests and forgotten farmland. Rain hammered the windshield, the wipers squeaking as they fought to keep up. I'd just finished a late shift, fixing a busted tractor for Old Man Carter, and my eyes were heavy, my hands still greasy despite scrubbing them raw. The radio was on, but all I got was static, so I turned it down, letting the rhythm of the rain fill the cab. That's when I saw him. A figure stood on the shoulder, barely visible through the downpour. My headlights caught him just as I rounded a bend, a tall, broad-shouldered man, his dark coat plastered to his frame, water dripping from the brim of a tattered baseball cap. He had one hand raised, thumb out, the universal sign for a ride. I slowed down, squinting through the glass. Something about him made my stomach twist, a gut feeling I couldn't shake. But the rain was relentless, and I've got a soft spot for anyone stuck out in a storm like that. Against my better judgment, I pulled over. The passenger door creaked as he yanked it open, climbing in without a word. Water streamed off him, pooling on the floor mat, and the cab filled with the sharp smell of wet wool and something metallic I couldn't place. He settled into the seat behind me. I'd pushed the front passenger seat forward to haul tools earlier, and I glanced at him through the rear-view mirror. His face was shadowed under the cap, but I caught a glimpse of a thick, unkempt beard and eyes that seemed to gleam unnaturally in the dim light. "Thanks for stopping," he said finally, his voice low and gravelly, like he'd smoked a pack a day for decades. "Not many do." "No problem," I replied, forcing a smile as I pulled back onto the road. "Where are you headed?" "Just up the way," he said vaguely, shifting in the seat. I waited for more, but he didn't offer anything else. The silence stretched out, heavy and thick, broken only by the rain and the faint creak of his soaked coat rubbing against the upholstery. I shifted uncomfortably, my fingers tightening on the steering wheel. I don't know why, but having him behind me, where I couldn't see him properly, made the hairs on my neck stand up. Trying to shake the unease, I reached for the radio knob and turned it up. Static buzzed for a moment before a voice broke through, crisp and urgent. "Breaking news. Authorities report a patient has escaped from Crestview Psychiatric Facility, approximately 30 miles west of Millwood. The individual is described as male, 6'2", medium build, with a heavy beard. He is considered armed and extremely dangerous. If sighted, do not approach. Contact law enforcement immediately. My breath caught in my throat. I flicked my eyes to the mirror again. His head was tilted down, cap hiding his face, but I could feel him watching me. My pulse kicked into overdrive, a cold sweat breaking out across my palms. Heavy beard, 6'2". I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence. Plenty of guys fit that description, but the metallic smell in the air suddenly clicked. Blood. It smelled like blood. "You hear that?" I said, keeping my voice steady, though it trembled at the edges. "Crazy stuff, huh?" He didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, he lifted his head, and our eyes met in the mirror. His were wide, unblinking, glowing like a cat's caught in headlights. "Yeah," he muttered. "Crazy." I swallowed hard, focusing on the road. The rain blurred everything beyond 10 feet, the yellow lines fading into the dark. I needed to get him out of my truck, but we were miles from anywhere. Nothing but trees and mud for as far as I could see. My mind raced. "Stay calm, David. Get to the gas station at Miller's Crossing. Drop him there." That's when I heard it. A faint, rhythmic clinking, like metal tapping metal. My eyes darted to the mirror again. His hands were moving, fidgeting with something in his lap. I couldn't see what it was, but the sound sent a jolt of panic through me. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles whitening, and pressed the gas pedal a little harder. The truck lurched forward, tires skidding slightly on the wet asphalt. "Where'd you say you were going again?" I asked, forcing casualness into my tone. "Up ahead," he repeated, his voice flat. The clinking stopped, and for a moment there was nothing but the rain. Then he leaned forward, close enough that I felt his breath on the back of my neck. "You're a good guy, David. Most people wouldn't stop." My blood turned to ice. I hadn't told him my name. My mouth went dry, words sticking in my throat as I stammered. "How do you know my name?" He chuckled, a low, guttural sound that made my skin crawl. "I know a lot of things, like how you live alone in that little house off Route 9. How you leave your back door unlocked sometimes." I jerked the wheel reflexively, the truck swerving before I corrected it. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it over the storm. "What the hell are you talking about?" I snapped, my voice cracking. He didn't answer. Instead, he shifted again, and the clinking resumed, louder this time. Deliberate. I risked a glance over my shoulder, just for a second, and saw it. A hunting knife in his hands, the blade gleaming as he ran his thumb along the edge. His lips curled into a smile, slow and sinister, revealing stained teeth. "Pull over," he said, his tone dropping to a growl. "No way," I shot back, adrenaline surging. I floored the gas, the truck roaring as it picked up speed. The road curved sharply ahead, but I didn't care. I had to get away. He lunged forward, the knife flashing toward my neck, but I ducked, the blade grazing my shoulder instead. Pain seared through me, hot and sharp, and I yelped, swerving again. "Stop the damn truck!" he roared, grabbing at my arm. I yanked free, slamming my elbow back into his face. I heard a crunch, maybe his nose, and he cursed, falling back into the seat. Blood trickled down my arm, soaking my sleeve, but I kept my foot on the pedal, eyes locked on the road. The gas station at Miller's Crossing loomed ahead, its flickering neon sign a beacon in the dark. I didn't slow down until I hit the gravel lot, tires screeching as I skidded to a stop. I threw the door open and bolted out, slipping in the mud, my boots pounding toward the station's dim light. "Help!" I screamed, my voice raw. "Somebody, help me!" The cashier, a wiry kid with acne scars, poked his head out from behind the counter as I burst inside, dripping wet and bleeding. "Call the cops!" I gasped, clutching my shoulder. "There's a guy in my truck. He's got a knife." The kid fumbled for the phone, dialing with shaky hands, while I turned to peer out the rain-streaked window. My truck sat there, engine still running, headlights cutting through the storm. The passenger door hung open, but he was gone. No shadow, no movement, just the empty cab staring back at me. The police arrived 20 minutes later, 2 officers in slickers trudging through the mud. I told them everything, the radio report, the knife, the way he knew my name. They searched the truck, their flashlights sweeping over the seats, the floor. My stomach dropped when they called me over. "Take a look at this," one officer said, holding up a plastic bag with gloved hands. Inside was the knife, long, serrated, streaked with my blood. Next to it, tucked under the seat, was a crumpled note. I leaned closer, my breath fogging the glass. Scrawled in shaky black ink were the words, "Next time, lock your doors." "He's gone," the other officer said, shaking his head. "No tracks, nothing. Rain's washed it all away." They drove me home that night, my truck towed to the station for evidence. I sat in the back of their cruiser, shivering under a blanket, the note's words echoing in my head. When we pulled up to my house, a small, weathered place off Route 9, I noticed something that made my heart stop. The back door, the one I swore I'd locked before leaving for work, was ajar, swinging slightly in the wind. The officers checked the house, guns drawn, but found nothing. No footprints, no signs of a break-in. "Probably the storm," they said, but their voices lacked conviction. They left me with a card and a promise to follow up, but I knew they wouldn't find him. Not out there. That night, I barricaded every door, every window, and sat on the couch with my dad's old shotgun across my lap. The rain had stopped, leaving an eerie silence that pressed against my ears. I kept replaying it, The way he said my name, the glint of that knife, the feeling of his eyes on me even now. Sleep wouldn't come, and every creak of the house made me jump, my finger hovering over the trigger. Around 3 a.m., I heard it, a faint tapping like fingernails on glass. My head snapped toward the kitchen window. Through the blinds, I saw nothing but darkness, but the tapping grew louder, insistent. I stood, legs trembling, and crept closer, shotgun raised. My breath hitched as I peered through a gap in the slats. He was there. Marcus. I don't know why I gave him that name, but it stuck in my mind. Stood just beyond the porch, his silhouette outlined by the faint glow of a distant street lamp. His cap was gone, revealing a mess of wet hair plastered to his skull, and his beard glistened with rainwater. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared, those glowing eyes boring into me. In his hand, the knife dangled loosely, catching the light with every slight twitch of his fingers. I stumbled back, a scream caught in my throat, and aimed the gun. "Get away!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "I'll shoot. I swear I will." The tapping stopped. I blinked, and when I looked again, he was gone. No sound of footsteps, no rustle of leaves, just an empty yard staring back at me. I sank to the floor, the shotgun slipping from my hands, my body shaking uncontrollably. Had he been there, or was my mind breaking under the strain? The next day, I installed deadbolts on every door, bought a security camera, and moved my bed away from the windows. The police called to say they'd found no trace of Marcus, no fingerprints, no DNA, nothing to match the escaped patient from Crestview. "Maybe he's long gone," they said, but I heard the doubt in their voices. Weeks passed, and the nightmares didn't stop. I'd wake up gasping, the image of his face burned into my mind. Those eyes, that smile. I stopped driving Highway 17, started taking the long way home, but every shadow on the road made my heart race. I kept that note, locked in a drawer, a reminder of how close I'd come to something I couldn't explain. Last night, I checked the camera footage for the first time in days. At 2:47 a.m., the porch light flickered, and there he was, Marcus, standing at the edge of the frame, staring straight into the lens. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. Then, slowly, he raised the knife and dragged it across his palm, letting the blood drip onto the ground. The video cut out, and when it resumed, he was gone. I don't know who he is or what he wants, but I know he's still out there, waiting. And every time I hear the rain start to fall, I wonder if he's closer than I think.